wanted to get one normal stream in before the end of June since I said hopefully I would. So we are back with some Poe. I will make sure everything is working. That's such a strange square. Why does it look so strange on there? Hang on. It's going to bug me if I don't adjust it. Ah! Oh, and I can't hear anything because of... There. Is that better? I think I have music going in the background. Can I? Just enough. Okay, excellent. We'll make sure. Yes, so we are back with some Poe. We're going to continue with the short stories. We're almost done. It should be two more streams probably of the short stories, and then we have the Arthur Gordon Pym story, which is longer, which I would like to get in one stream because my schedule is going to be a little bit up in the air. Ha 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 ha. We'll talk about that later. But we shall see. So for now, we shall start with mystification, and I didn't do any preparation, so I did a tiny little bit of preparation. So I there's cryptography in this, I guess, kind of potentially. So we'll see. This is going to be excellent. I'm going to get off of this. Oh, okay. All right, we're ready. Edgar Allan Poe and mystification. Does that say slid? Slid. If these be your pasados and montantes, I'll have none of them. Ned Knowles. We'll find out what that means, I guess. So keep it in mind. I always forget to keep those in mind, and then I go back afterwards and read it. And it makes sense. So anyway, we'll hopefully come back to that if I remember. The Baron Ritzner von Jung was of a noble Hungarian family, every member of which, at least as far back into antiquity as any certain records extend, was more or less remarkable for talent of some description, the majority for that species of grotesquerie in conception of which Tieck, a scion of the house, has given some vivid, although by no means the most vivid, exemplifications. My acquaintance with Ritzner commenced at the magnificent Chateau Jung, into which a train of droll adventures, not to be made public, threw me during the summer months of the year 18. Here it was I obtained a place in his regard, and here, with somewhat more difficulty, a partial insight into his mental conformation. In later days, this insight grew more clear, as the intimacy which had at first permitted it became more close, and when, after 3 years' separation, we met at, I really want to say goddamn, but I won't. We met at G. I knew all that it was necessary to know of the character of the Baron Ritzner von Jung. I remember the buzz of curiosity which his advent excited within the college precincts on the night of the 25th of June. How close is that to us? Interesting. I remember still more distinctly that while he was pronounced by all parties at first sight the most remarkable man in the world, no person made any attempt at accounting for this opinion. That he was unique appeared so undeniable that it was deemed impertinent to inquire wherein the uniquity consisted, but letting this matter pass for the present, I will merely observe that from the first moment of his setting foot within the limits of the university, he began to exercise over the habit, manners, persons, purses, and propensities of the whole community which surrounded him, an influence the most extensive and despotic, yet at the same time the most indefinitive. Oh my goodness, I cannot read tonight. The most indefinitive and altogether unaccountable. Thus, the brief period of his residence at the university forms an era in its annals and is characterized by all classes of people appertaining to it, or its dependencies, as that very extraordinary epoch forming the domination of the Baron Ritzner von Jung. Upon his advent to G, he sought me out in my apartments. He was then of no particular age, by what... Ooh, sorry. Oh no, I can't go over. I'll have to remember that. Okay. I was just noticing that the words are cut off. Upon his advent to G, he sought me out in my apartments. He was then of no particular age, by which I mean that it was impossible to form a guess respecting his age by any data personally afforded. He might have been 15 or 50 and was 21 years and 7 months. He was by no means a handsome man, perhaps the reverse. The contour of his face was somewhat angular and harsh. His forehead was lofty and very fair. His nose a snub, his eyes large, heavy, glassy, and meaningless. About the mouth there was more to be observed. The lips were gently protruded, and rested the one upon the other after such fashion that it is impossible to conceive any, even the most complex, combination of human features, conveying so entirely and so singly the idea of unmitigated gravity, solemnity, and repose. Oh, sorry, and I forgot to bring that up. It will be perceived, no doubt, from what I have already said, that the Baron was one of those human anomalies now and then to be found, who make the science of mystification the study and the business of their lives. For this science, a peculiar turn of mind gave him instinctively the cue, while his physical appearance afforded him unusual facilities for carrying his projects into effect. I firmly believe that no student at G, during that renowned epoch so quaintly termed the domination of the Baron Ritzner von Jung, ever rightly entered into the mystery which overshadowed his character. I truly think that no person at the university, with the exception of myself, ever suspected him to be capable of a joke, verbal or practical. The old bulldog at the the old bulldog at the garden gate would sooner have been accused, the ghost of Heraclitus, or the wig of the emeritus professor of theology. This, too, when it was evident that the most egregious and unpardonable of all conceivable tricks, whimsicalities, which is a great word, whimsicalities and buffooneries were brought about, if not directly by him, at least plainly through his intermediate agency or connivance. The beauty, if I may so call it, of his art mystique lay in that consummate ability resulting from an almost intuitive knowledge of human nature and a most wonderful self-possession, by means of which he never failed to make it appear that the drolleries he was occupied in bringing to a point arose partly in spite and partly in consequence of the laudable efforts he was making for their prevention and for the preservation of the good order and dignity of Alma Mater. The deep, the poignant, the poignant. I did just recently find out I'm not supposed to put a hard G on poignant. Poignant. I learned from reading, and so I sound the words out. The deep, the poignant, the overwhelming mortification, which upon each such failure of his praiseworthy endeavors would suffuse every lineament of his countenance, left not the slightest room for doubt of his sincerity in the bosoms of even his most skeptical companions. The adroitness, too, was no less worthy of observation, by which he contrived to shift the sense of the grotesque from the creator to the created, from his own person to the absurdities to which he had given rise. In no instance before that of which I speak have I known the habitual mystific escape the natural consequence of his maneuvers. All right, mystific. An attachment of the ludicrous to his own character and person. Continually enveloped in an atmosphere of whim, my friend appeared to live only for the severities of society, and not even his own household have for a moment associated other ideas than those of the rigid and august with the memory of the Baron Ritzner von Jung. During the epoch of his residence at G, it really appeared that the demon of the dolce far niente sweet something night? Sweet doing nothing. Demon of the sweet doing nothing. Laziness? It really appeared that the demon of the dolce far niente lay like an incubus upon the university. Nothing, at least, was done beyond eating and drinking and making merry. Okay, so like frivolity, sort of. The apartments of the students were converted into so many pot houses, and there was no pot house of them. Does it mean a pot house, or is it something else? And there was no pot house of them all more famous or more frequented than that of the Baron. Our carousals here were many and boisterous and long and never unfruitful of events. Upon one occasion we had protracted our sitting until nearly daybreak, and an unusual quantity of wine had been drunk. The company consisted of 7 or 8 individuals besides the Baron and myself. Most of these were young men of wealth, of high connection, of great family pride, and all alive with exaggerated sense of honor. They abounded in the most ultra-German opinions respecting the duello. Come back. The duello. Why can't I? Didn't. I there and there. Translate. Duel. Okay, I could have just. Alright. They abounded in the most ultra of German opinions respecting the duel. To these quixotic notions, some recent Parisian publications, backed by 3 or 4 desperate and fatal reconteurs at G, had given new vigor and impulse, and thus the conversation, during the greater part of the night, had run wild upon the all engrossing topic of the times. The Baron, who had been unusually silent and abstracted in the earlier portion of the evening, at length seemed to be aroused from his apathy, took a leading part in the discourse, and dwelt upon the benefits, and more especially upon the beauties, of the received code of etiquette in passages of arms, with an ardor, an eloquence, an impressiveness, and an affectionateness of manner, which elicited the warmest enthusiasm from his hearers in general, and absolutely staggered even myself, who well knew him to be at heart a ridiculer of those very points for which he contended, and especially to hold the entire fanfare, arrogant or boastful talk of fanfare, which he contended, and especially to hold the entire fanfaronade of dueling etiquette in the sovereign contempt which it deserves. Looking around me during a pause in the Baron's discourse, of which my readers may gather some faint idea when I say that it bore resemblance to the fervid, chanting, monotonous, yet musical sermonic manner of Coleridge, I perceived symptoms of even more than the general interest in the countenance of one of the party. This gentleman, whom I shall call Herman, was an original in every respect, except perhaps in the single particular that he was a very great fool. He contrived to bear, however, among a particular set at the university, a reputation for deep metaphysical thinking, and I believe for some logical talent. As a duelist, he had acquired great renown, even at G. I forget the precise number of victims who had fallen at his hands, but they were many. He was a man of courage, undoubtedly, but it was upon his minute acquaintance with the etiquette of the duello and the nicety of his sense of honor that he most especially prided himself. These things were a hobby which he rode to the death. To Ritzner, ever upon the lookout for the grotesque, his peculiarities had for a long time past afforded food for mystification. Of this, however, I was not aware, although in the present instance I saw clearly that something of a whimsical nature was upon the tapis with my friend, upon his face, and that Herman was its especial object. Tapis. Tapis. The carpet. It was on his carpet. It was upon the tapis. It's probably a phrase. As the former proceeded in his discourse, or rather monologue, I perceived the excitement of the latter momently increasing. At length he spoke, offering some objection to a point insisted upon by R, and giving his reasons in detail. To these the Baron replied at length, still maintaining his exaggerated tone of sentiment, and concluding, in what I thought very bad taste, with a sarcasm and a sneer. The hobby of Herman now took the bit in his teeth. This I could discern by the studied hair-splitting farrago of his rejoinder. Farrago, a confused mixture, the splitting farrago of his rejoinder. His last words I distinctly remember. Your opinions, allow me to say, Baron von Jung, although in the main correct, are, in many nice points, discreditable to yourself and to the university of which you are a member. In a few respects, they are even unworthy of serious refutation. I would say more than this, sir, were it not for the fear of giving you offense. Here the speaker smiled blandly. I would say, sir, that your opinions are not the opinions to be expected from a gentleman. As Herman completed this equivocal sentence, all eyes were turned upon the Baron. He became pale, then excessively red, then dropping his pocket handkerchief, stooped to recover it. When I caught a glimpse of his countenance, while it could be the Baron, he became pale, then excessively red, then, dropping his pocket handkerchief, stooped to recover it, when I caught a glimpse of his countenance, while it could be seen by no one else at the table. It was radiant with the quizzical expression which was its natural character, but which I had never seen it assume except when we were alone together, and when he unbent himself freely. In an instant afterward, he stood erect, confronting Herman, and so total an alteration of countenance in so short a period I certainly never saw before. For a moment I even fancied that I had misconceived him, and that he was in sober earnest. He appeared to be stifling with passion, and his face was cadaverously white. And I'm sorry, I'm covering up cadaverously white. For a short time he remained silent, apparently striving to master his emotion. Having at length seemingly succeeded, he reached a decanter which stood near him, saying as he held it firmly clenched, "The language you have thought proper to employ, Mynheer Herman, in addressing yourself to me is objectionable in so many particulars that I have neither temper nor time for specification. Specification. That my opinions, however, are not the opinions to be expected from a gentleman is an observation so directly offensive as to allow me but one line of conduct. Some courtesy, nevertheless, is due to the presence of this company, and to yourself at this moment as my guest. You will pardon me, therefore, if, upon this consideration, I deviate slightly from the general usage among gentlemen in similar cases of personal affront. You will forgive me for the moderate tax I shall make upon your imagination, and endeavor to consider for an instant the reflection of your person in yonder mirror as the living Mynheer Herman himself. This being done, there will be no difficulty whatever. I shall discharge this canter of wine at your image in yonder mirror, and thus fulfill all the spirit, if not the exact letter, of resentment for your insult, while the necessity of physical violence to your real person will be obviated." With these words, he hurled the decanter, full of wine, against the mirror which hung directly opposite Herman, striking the reflection of his person with great precision, and of course shattering the glass into fragments. The whole company at once started to their feet, and, with the exception of myself and Ritzner, took their departure. As Herman went out, the Baron whispered me that I should follow him and make an offer of my services. To this I agreed, not knowing precisely what to make of so ridiculous a piece of business. So accommodating. The duelist accepted my aid with his stiff and ultra recherche. Recherche, isn't that like research to ultra sought after? Yes, to search for. Ultra research. Sorry. The duelist accepted my aid with his stiff and ultra sought after air, and taking my arm led me to his apartment. I could hardly forbear laughing in his face while he proceeded to discuss with the profoundest gravity what he termed the refinedly peculiar character of the insult he had received. After a tiresome harangue, is it just harangue? Oh, come back. Oh, come back. Ah! Where is it? Harangue. Harangue? Harangue. 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 Oh, yes. After a tiresome harangue in his ordinary style, he took down from his bookshelves a number of musty volumes on the subject of the duello, and entertained me for a long time with their contents, reading aloud and commenting earnestly as he read. I can just remember the titles of some of the works. There were the Ordinance of Philip le Bel on Single Combat, Theata of Honor by Favin, and a treatise on the permission of duels by Andiguier. He displayed also, with much pomposity, Brantome's Memoirs of Duels, published at Cologne in 1666, in the types of Elzevir, a precious and unique vellum paper volume with a fine margin, and bound by de Rome. But he requested my attention particularly, and with an air of mysterious sagacity, to a thick octavo, written in barbarous Latin by one Hedelin, a Frenchman, and having the quaint title, Duelli lex scripta et non alliterque? I don't know. An alliteration? The law was... What? The law was engraved, the Trinity, writings, and there is none, and otherwise. Duelli lex scripta et none. Sure, from this he read me one of the drollest chapters in the world concerning injury for application, by application, by construction, and per se, etc. About half of which he averred, or is it averred? Oh my goodness gracious. It has been a while. Averred. We'll go with averred. He averred was strictly, about half of which he averred was strictly applicable to his own refinedly peculiar case, although not one syllable of the whole matter could I understand for the life of me. Having finished the chapter, he closed the book and demanded what I thought necessary to be done. I replied that I had entire confidence in his superior delicacy of feeling and would abide by what he proposed. With this answer, he seemed flattered and sat down to write a note to the Baron. It ran thus: Sir, my friend M.P. will hand you this note. I find it incumbent upon me to request, at your earliest convenience, an explanation of this evening's occurrences at your chambers. In the event of your declining this request, Mr. P. will be happy to arrange with any friend whom you may appoint the steps preliminary to a meeting. With sentiments of perfect respect, your most humble servant, Johann Hermann. Hermann? To the Baron Ritzner von Jung, August 18th, 18 something. Wasn't it just June 25th? Not knowing what better to do, I think that was an earlier party. Not knowing what better to do, I called upon Ritzner with this epistle. He bowed as I presented it, then, with a grave countenance, motioned me to a seat. Having perused the cartel, he wrote the following reply, which I carried to Hermann. Sir, through our common friend Mr. P., I have received your note of this evening. Upon due reflection, I frankly admit the propriety of the explanation you suggest. This being admitted, I still find great difficulty, owing to the refinedly peculiar nature of our disagreement, and of the personal affront offered on my part, in so wording what I have to say by way of apology, as to meet all the minute exigencies as to meet all the minute exigencies and all the variable shadows of the case. I have great reliance, however, on that extreme delicacy of discrimination in matters appertaining to the rules of etiquette, for which you have been so long and so preeminently distinguished. With perfect certainty, therefore, of being comprehended, I beg leave, in lieu of offering any sentiments of my own, to refer you to the opinions of the Sieur Hedelin, as set forth in the 9th paragraph of the chapter of Injuria per applicationem per constructionem et per se, in his Duelli lex scripta et non eliterque. The nicety of your discernment in all the matters here treated will be sufficient, I am assured, to convince you that the mere circumstance of me referring you to this admirable passage ought to satisfy your request, as a man of honor, for explanation. With sentiments of profound respect, your most obedient servant, von Jung. The Herr Johann Hermann, August 18th, 18. Hermann commenced the perusal of this epistle with a scowl, which, however, was converted into a smile of the most ludicrous self-complacency as he came to the rigmarole about the book. Having finished reading, he begged me with the blandest of all possible smiles to be seated, while he made reference to the treatise in question. Is it treatise or treatise? Because I think treatise. I think it's treatise. Treatise. In question. Turning to the passage specified, he read it with great care to himself, then closed the book, and desired me, in my character of confidential acquaintance, to express to the Baron von Jung his exalted sense of his chivalrous behavior, and in that of second, to assure him that the explanation offered was of the fullest, the most honorable, and the most unequivocally satisfactory nature. Somewhat amazed at all this, I made my retreat to the Baron. He seemed to receive Hermann's amicable letter as a matter of course, and after a few words of general conversation, went to an inner room and brought out the everlasting treatise Duelli lex scripta et non eliterque. He handed me the volume and asked me to look over some portion of it. I did so, but to little purpose, not being able to gather the least particle of meaning. He then took the book himself and read me a chapter aloud. To my surprise, what he read proved to be a most horribly absurd account of a duel between two baboons. He now explained the mystery, showing that the volume, as it appeared prima facie, was written upon the plan of the nonsense verses of Du Bartas. That is to say, the language of it was ingeniously framed so as to present to the ear all the outward signs of intelligibility, and even of profundity, while in fact not a shadow of meaning existed. The key to the whole was found in leaving out every second and third word alternately, when there appeared a series of ludicrous quizzes upon a single combat as practiced in modern times. Okay, hang on. The key to the whole was found in leaving out every second and third word alternately, when there appeared a series of ludicrous quizzes upon a single combat as practiced in modern times. The Baron afterwards informed me that he had purposely thrown the treatise in Hermann's way 2 or 3 weeks before the adventure, and that he was satisfied from the general tenor of his conversation that he had studied it with the deepest attention and firmly believed it to be a work of unusual merit. Upon this hint, he proceeded. Herman would have died 1,000 deaths rather than acknowledge his inability to understand anything and everything in the universe that had ever been written about the duel. Oh, that's excellent. I love that. I love that so much. That was funny. That was, yes. Okay. So, since I remembered, we are going to go back and see if that makes slid. If these be your pasados and montantes, I'll have none of them. I do remember reading about it back when I was getting ready for that. I had that prepared the last time I was reading, but I don't remember it had something to do with something, which is very descriptive. But yeah, that was, yeah, that whole we're people trying to, well, especially sorry, I'm all over the place. Um attempting, see, but that's the thing, is because he has a lot of knowledge about it. So think of it like a language, right? If you know the language well enough, you should be able to read mostly anything written about it or in that language. So if you are very if you're expert level or know a lot about a certain subject, say the duello, you should understand everything written about it, but also recognize that something isn't about it. But then again, it is. It's that cryptographic, but it says that it doesn't, all the outward signs of intelligibility and even profundity, well, in fact, not a shadow of meaning existed. So there's the other thing where, depending on the language you speak, there is a way to I don't know how to really describe it, but people, like, I mean, there's double speak for one. And then there's also where someone can speak and you can experience how your language sounds to people who don't speak that language because it doesn't make any sense and there isn't any meaning behind it. But it sounds like it should be. So it is. It's profound. But then again, like it said, he's a fool. But it's that pride too. I am. I'm so all over the place. I'm so sorry. But it's that pride of just being able to, yeah, this doesn't make any sense at all. Or at least, I don't know, recognizing that it's not supposed to make sense. I don't know. I'd have to find a puzzle and see if I could do it. I'd be curious. Because it is. It's like from this end, not actually doing it, it seems like it should be easy. But once you're actually in it, it changes things. All right. So, all over the place. Wasn't very profound at all. I feel a little bit like Harriman at the moment, but whatever. It's been a while. Please forgive me. Xing a paragraph. I'm excited about this one. I read about how it goes, and it looks really funny too. Xing a paragraph. And it's Poe, Xing a paragraph by Edgar Allan Poe, the grotesque, the macabre, the funny man. As it is well known that the wise men came from the east, and as Mr. Touch-and-Go Bullethead came from the east, it follows that Mr. Bullethead was a wise man. And if collateral proof of the matter be needed, here we have it. Mr. B. Mr. B was an editor. Nice. Irascibility was his sole foible, for in fact the obstinacy of which men accused him was anything but his foible, since he justly considered it his forte. It was his strong point, his virtue, and it would have required all the logic of a Brownson to convince him that it was anything else. I have shown that Touch-and-Go Bullethead was... This is going right? Okay. I have shown that Touch-and-Go Bullethead was a wise man, and the only occasion on which he did not prove infallible was when, abandoning that legitimate home for all wise men, the East, he migrated to the city of Alexander the Greatonopolis, or some place of a similar title, out west. I must do him the justice to say, however, that when he made up his mind finally to settle in that town, it was under the impression that no newspaper, and consequently no editor, existed in that particular section of the country. In establishing the Teapot, he expected to have the field all to himself. I feel confident he never would have dreamed of taking up his residence in Alexander the Greatinopolis, had he been aware that in Alexander the Greatinopolis there lived a gentleman named John Smith, if I rightly remember, who for many years had there quietly grown fat in editing and publishing the Alexander the Greatinopolis Gazette. It was solely, therefore, on account of having been misinformed that Mr. Bullethead found himself in Alex, suppose we call it Nopolis for short, but as he did find himself there, he determined to keep up his character for firmness, and remain. So remain he did, and he did more. He unpacked his press, type, etc., rented an office exactly opposite to that of the Gazette, and on the third morning after his arrival, issued the first number of the Alexan, that is to say, of the Nopolis Teapot. As nearly as I can recollect, this was the name of the new paper. The leading article, I must admit, was brilliant, not to say severe. It was especially bitter about things in general, and as for the editor of the Gazette, he was torn all to pieces in particular. Some of Bullethead's remarks were really so fiery that I have always, since that time, been forced to look upon John Smith, who is still alive, in the light of a salamander. I like salamanders, they're cute. I cannot pretend to give all the Teapot's paragraphs verbatim, but one of them ran thus. Oh yes, oh we perceive, oh no doubt, the editor over the way is a genius. Oh my, oh goodness gracious, what is this world coming to? Oh tempora, oh Moses! A philippic at once so caustic and so classical alighted like a bombshell among the hitherto peaceful citizens of Nopolis. Groups of excited individuals gathered at the corners of the streets. Every one awaited with heartfelt anxiety the reply of the dignified Smith. Next morning it appeared as follows. We quote from the Teapot of yesterday the subjoined paragraph. Oh yes, oh we perceive, oh no doubt, oh my, oh goodness, oh tempora, oh Moses. Why, the fellow is all oh. That accounts for his reasoning, that accounts for his reasoning in a circle, very nice, and explains why there is neither beginning nor end to him, nor to anything that he says. We really do not believe the vagabond can write a word that hasn't an O in it. Wonder if this owing is a habit of his. By the by, he came away from down east in a great hurry. Wonder if he owes as much there as he does here. Oh, it is pitiful. Oh, so good. The indignation of Mr. Bullethead at these scandalous insinuations I shall not attempt to describe. On the eel-skinning principle, however, he did not seem to be so much incensed at the attack upon his integrity as one might have imagined. It was the sneer at his style that drove him to desperation. What? He, Touch-and-Go Bullethead, not able to write a word without an O in it? He would soon let the jackanape see that he was mistaken. Yes, he would let him see how much he was mistaken, the puppy. He, Touch-and-Go Bullethead of Frog Pondium, would let Mr. John Smith perceive that he, Bullethead, would indict, if it so pleased him, a whole paragraph, aye, a whole article, in which that contemptible vowel should not even once make its appearance. But no, that would be yielding a point to the said John Smith. He, Bullethead, would make no alteration in his style to suit the caprices of any Mr. Smith in Christendom. Perish so vile a thought. The O forever. He would persist in the O. He would be as O-y could be. Burning with the chivalry of this determination, the great Touch-and-Go in the next Teapot came out merely with this simple but resolute paragraph in reference to this unhappy affair. The editor of the Teapot has the honor of advising the editor of the Gazette that he, the Teapot, will take an opportunity in tomorrow morning's paper of convincing him, the Gazette, that he, the Teapot, both can and will be his own master as regards style. He, the Teapot, intending to show him, the Gazette, the supreme, and indeed the withering contempt with which the criticism of him, the Gazette, inspires the independent bosom of him, the Teapot, by composing for the especial gratification, of him, the Gazette, a leading article, of some extent, in which the beautiful vowel, the emblem of eternity, yet so inoffensive to the hyper-exquisite delicacy of him, the Gazette, shall most certainly not be avoided by his, the Gazette's, most obedient, humble servant, the Teapot. So much for Buckingham. What? In fulfillment of the awful threat thus darkly intimated rather than decidedly enunciated, the great bullet head, turning a deaf ear to all entreaties for copy and simply requesting his foreman to go to the go to the devil, when he, the foreman, assured him, the teapot, that it was high time to go to press. Turning a deaf ear to everything, I say, the great bullet head sat up until daybreak, consuming the midnight oil and absorbed in the composition of the really unparalleled paragraph which follows. So ho, John, how now? Told you so, you know. Don't crow another time before you're out of the woods. Does your mother know you're out? Oh, no, no. So go home at once now. There isn't a no right there. John, go home at once now, John, to your odious old woods of Concord. Go home to your woods, old owl, go. You won't? Oh, po, John, don't do so. You've got to go, you know. So go at once and don't go slow, for nobody owns you here, you know. Oh, John, John, if you don't go, you're no homo, no. You're only a fowl, an owl, a cow, a sow, a doll, a Paul, a poor old good-for-nothing to nobody, log, dog, hog, or frog, come out of a Concord bog. Cool, now, cool. Do be cool, you fool. None of your crowing, old cock. Don't frown so. Don't. Don't holloa, nor howl, nor growl, nor bow, wow, wow. Good Lord, John, now how you do look. Told you so, you know. But stop rolling your goose of an old pole about so, and go and drown your sorrows in a bowl. Whoa. Exhausted, very naturally, by so stupendous an effort, the great touch and go could attend to nothing farther that night. Firmly, composedly, yet with an air of conscious power, he handed his manuscript to the devil in waiting, and then, walking leisurely home, retired with ineffable dignity to bed. Meantime, the devil to whom the copy was entrusted ran upstairs to his case in an unutterable hurry, and forthwith made a commencement at setting the manuscript up. In the first place, of course, as the opening word was so, he made a plunge into the capital S hole and came out in triumph with a capital S. Elated by this success, he immediately threw himself upon the little O box with a blindfold of impetuosity. But who shall describe his horror when his fingers came up without the anticipated letter in their clutch? Who shall paint his astonishment and rage at perceiving, as he rubbed his knuckles, that he had been only thumping them to no purpose against the bottom of an empty box? Not a single little O was in the little O hole, and glancing fearfully at the capital O partition, he found that, to his extreme terror, in a precisely similar predicament. Awe-stricken, his first impulse was to rush to the foreman. "Sir," said he, gasping for breath, "I can't never set up nothing without no O's." "Oh, no. What do you mean by that?" growled the foreman, who was in a very ill humor at being kept up so late. "Why, sir, there bean't an O in the office, neither a big un nor a little un. What the devil has become of all that were in the case?" "I don't know, sir," said the boy, "but one of them ere Gazette devils has been prowling about here all night, and I expect he's gone and cabbaged 'em every one." "Dod rot him, I haven't a doubt of it," replied the foreman, getting purple with rage. "But I tell you what you do, Bob, that's a good boy. You go over the first chance you get and hook every one of their eyes, and damn them, they're izzards." "Just so," replied Bob, with a wink and a frown. "I'll be into 'em. I'll let 'em know a thing or two, but in the meantime, that 'ere paragraph must go in tonight, you know, else there'll be the devil to pay, and not a bit of pitch hot," interrupted the foreman, with a deep sigh and an emphasis on the bit, "and not a bit of pitch hot. Is it a very long paragraph, Bob?" "Shouldn't call it a very long paragraph," said Bob. "Ah, well then, do the best you can with it. We must get to press," said the foreman, who was over head and ears in work. "Just stick in some other letter for O. Nobody's going to read the fellow's trash anyhow." "Very well," replied Bob. "Here goes it." And off he hurried to his case, muttering as he went, "Consid'able vell, them here expressions particular for a man as doesn't swar so as to gouge out all their eyes, and damn all their gizzards. Vell, here's the chap as is just able for to do it. The fact is that although Bob was but 12 years old and 4 feet high, he was equal to any amount of fight in a small way. The exigency here described is by no means of rare occurrence in printing offices, and I cannot tell how to account for it, but the fact is indisputable that when the exigency does occur, it almost always happens that X is adopted as a substitute for the letter deficient. The true reason, perhaps, is that X is rather the most superabundant letter in the cases, or at least was so in old times, long enough to render the substitution in question an habitual thing with printers. As for Bob, he would have considered it heretical to employ any other character in a case of this kind than the X to which he had been accustomed. I shall have to X this here paragraph, said he to himself as he read it over in astonishment, but it's just about the awfulest owy paragraph I ever did see. So X it he did, unflinchingly, and to press it went X'd. Next morning, the population of Nopolis were taken all aback by reading, in the teapot, the following extraordinary leader. So how six Jixon Hixu Nixu. So ho, John, how now, told you so, you know, don't crow another time before you're out of the woods. Does your mother know you're out? Oh, no, no, so go home at once now, John, to your odious old woods of Concord. Go home to your woods, old owl, go. You won't? Oh, po, John. Don't do so. You've got to go, you know, so go at once and don't go slow, for nobody owns you here, you know. Oh, John, if you don't go, you're no homo, no, you're only a fowl, an owl, a cow, a sow, a doll, a pole, a poor old good-for-nothing to nobody log, dog, hog, or frog come out of a Concord bog. Cool now, cool. Do be cool, you fool. None of your crowing, old cock. Don't frown so, don't. Don't hullo, nor howl, nor growl, nor bow wow wow. Good Lord, John, how you do look. Told you so, you know, but stop rolling your goose of an old pole about so, and go and drown your sorrows in a bowl. Oh my God. The uproar occasioned by this mystical and cabalistical article is not to be conceived. The first definite idea entertained by the populace was that some diabolical treason lay concealed in the hieroglyphics, and there was a general rush to Bullethead's residence for the purpose of riding him on a rail. But that gentleman was nowhere to be found. He had vanished. No one could tell how, and not even the ghost of him has ever been seen since. What? Unable to discover its legitimate object, the popular fury at length subsided, leaving behind it, by way of sediment, quite a medley of opinion about this unhappy affair. One gentleman thought the whole an excellent joke. Another said that indeed Bullethead had shown much exuberance of fancy. A third admitted him eccentric, but no more. A fourth could only suppose that the Yankees designed to express, and in a general way, his exasperation. Say rather to set an example to posterity, suggested a fifth. That Bullethead had been driven to an extremity was clear to all, and in fact, since that editor could not be found, there was some talk about lynching the other one. The more common conclusion, however, was that the affair was simply extraordinary and inexplicable. Even the town mathematician confessed that he could make nothing of so dark a problem. X, everybody knew, was an unknown quantity, but in this case, as he properly observed, there was an unknown quantity of X. The opinion of Bob, the devil, who kept dark about his having X'd the paragraph, did not meet with so much attention as I think it deserved, although it was very openly and very fearlessly expressed. He said that, for his part, he had no doubt about the matter at all, that it was a clear case that Mr. Bullethead never could be persuaded for to drink like other folks, but was continually a swigging o' that air blessed triple X ale, and as a natural consequence, it just puffed him up savage and made him X-cross in the extreme. I tried very hard, please forgive me. That was excellent. Extraordinary. I'll go back up here. They said it all right in this part, right in here. Excellent, extraordinary, all of it. I loved it. I loved it very much. I accidentally did read ahead, so I knew it was coming, but again, I was surprised because I didn't know what was all. Yeah, I was surprised, and it was great. And I love wordplay and puns. The worse they are, the better. And yeah, that was funny, and that was good. And I thought that he did it When I had accidentally read ahead, I thought that he did do it. What's the word? On purpose. But that was an interesting little bit in there that they took the O's. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to see if I can do one more. Nope. Let me see the things. 4, 5, 6. Yes, we'll get. Yeah. We'll do one more. Diddling, considered as one of the exact sciences. Diddling does not mean what it means now. It meant stealing, or, yeah, like little pickpocketing, I believe. That was something that I did read about, and I feel it very necessary to let know as we're about to read this. So, stealing, pickpocketing, whatever. Diddling considered as one of the exact sciences. Hey, diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. Interesting. Okay. Since the world began, there have been 2 Jeremys. The one wrote a Jeremiad about usury and was called Jeremy Bentham. He has been much admired by Mr. John Neal and was a great man in a small way. The other gave name to the most important of the exact sciences and was a great man in a great way. I may say, indeed, in the very greatest of ways. Diddling, or the abstract idea conveyed by the verb to diddle, is sufficiently well understood, yet the fact, the deed, the thing, diddling, is somewhat difficult to define. We may get, however, at a tolerably distinct conception of the matter in hand by defining not the thing diddling in itself, but man as an animal that diddles. Had Plato but hit upon this, he would have been spared the affront of the picked chicken, which is also a great story. Very pertinently it was... Very pertinently, it was demanded of Plato why a picked chicken, which was clearly a biped without feathers, was not, according to his own definition, a man. But I am not to be bothered by any similar query. Man is an animal that diddles, and there is no animal that diddles but man. It will take an entire hen coop of picked chickens to get over that. I almost want to start using that as a phrase, just in general. That's great. It will take an entire hen coop of picked chickens to get over that. What constitutes the essence, the nair, the principle of diddling is, in fact, peculiar to the class of creatures that wear coats and pantaloons. A crow thieves, a fox cheats, a weasel outwits, a man diddles. To diddle is his destiny. Man was made to mourn, says the poet, but not so. He was made to diddle. This is his aim, his object, his end, and for this reason, when a man's diddled, we say he's done. Diddling, rightly considered, is a compound of which the ingredients are minuteness, interest, perseverance, ingenuity, audacity, nonchalance, originality, impertinence, and grin. Minuteness. Your diddler is minute. His operations are upon a small scale. His business is retail, for cash or approved paper at sight. Should he ever be tempted into magnificent speculation, he then at once loses his distinctive features and becomes what we term a financier. This latter word conveys the diddling idea in every respect except that of magnitude. A diddler may thus be regarded as a banker in petto. A financial operation as a diddle at Brobdingnag. Brobdingnag? Maybe? The one is to the other as Homer to Flaccus, as a mastodon to a mouse, as the tail of a comet to that of a pig. I love this. Not similes. Metaphor? Similes. Yes, similes. Interest. Your diddler is guided by self-interest. He scorns to diddle for the mere sake of the diddle. He has an object in view, his pocket, and yours. He regards always the main chance. He looks to number 1. You are number 2 and must look to yourself. Perseverance. Your diddler perseveres. He is not readily discouraged. Should even the banks break, he cares nothing about it. He steadily pursues his end, and the dog will never be driven away by the skin of grease. Exactly. So he never lets go of his game. Oh, so like if you rubbed grease on the game, so it would be slippery? Maybe. I don't know. Ingenuity. Your diddler is ingenious. He has constructiveness large. He understands plot. He invents and circumvents. Were he not Alexander, he would be Diogenes. Were he not a diddler, he would be a maker of patent rat traps or an angler for trout. Audacity. Your diddler is audacious. He is a bold man. He carries the war into Africa. He conquers all by assault. He would not fear the daggers of the Frey Heron. With a little more prudence, Dick Turpin would have made a good diddler. With a trifle less blarney, Daniel O'Connell. With a pound or two more brains, Charles the 12th. Nonchalance. Your diddler is nonchalant. He is not at all nervous. He never had any nerves. He is never seduced into a flurry. He is never put out, unless put out of doors. He is cool, cool as a cucumber. He is calm, calm as a smile from Lady Berry. He is easy, easy as an old glove, or the damsels of ancient Bahia. All right. Originality. Your diddler is original, conscientiously so. His thoughts are his own. He would scorn to employ those of another. A stale trick is his aversion. He would return a purse, I am sure, upon discovering that he had obtained it by an unoriginal diddle. Impertinence. Your diddler is impertinent. He swaggers. He sets his arms akimbo. He thrusts his hands in his trousers pockets. He sneers in your face. He treads on your corns. He eats your dinner. He dinks your wine. He drinks your wine. He borrows your money. He pulls your nose. He kicks your poodle, and he kisses your wife. Grin. Your true diddler winds up all with a grin. But this nobody sees but himself. He grins when his daily work is done, when his allotted labors are accomplished, at night in his own closet and altogether for his own private entertainment. He goes home. He locks his door. He divests himself of his clothes. He puts out his candle. He gets into bed. He places his head upon the pillow. All this done, and your diddler grins. This is no hypothesis. It is a matter of course. I reason a priori, and a diddle would be no diddle without a grin. Good to know. The origin of the diddle is referable to the infancy of the human race. Perhaps the first diddler, was Adam. At all events, we can trace the science back to a very remote period of antiquity. The moderns, however, have brought it to a perfection never dreamed of by our thick-headed progenitors. Without pausing to speak of the old saws, therefore, I shall content myself with a compendious account of some of the more modern instances. A very good diddle is this. A housekeeper, in want of a sofa, for instance, is seen to go in and out of several cabinet warehouses. At length she arrives at one offering an excellent variety. She is accosted and invited to enter by a polite and voluble individual at the door. She finds a sofa well adapted to her views, and upon inquiring the price, is surprised and delighted to hear a sum named at least 20% lower. I know where this is going. Lower than her expectations. She hastens to make the purchase, gets a bill and receipt, leaves her address with a request that the article be sent home as speedily as possible, and retires amid a profusion of bows from the shopkeeper. The night arrives, and no sofa. The next day passes, and still none. A servant is sent to make inquiry about the delay. The whole transaction is denied. No sofa has been sold, no money received, except by the diddler, who played shopkeeper for the nonce. Our cabinet warehouses are left entirely unattended, and thus afford every facility for a trick of this kind. Visitors enter, look at furniture, and depart unheeded and unseen. Should anyone wish to purchase, or to inquire the price of an article, a bell is at hand, and this is considered amply sufficient. Again, quite a respectable diddle is this. A well-dressed individual enters the shop, makes a purchase to the value of $1, finds, much to his vexation, that he has left his pocketbook in another coat pocket, and so says to the shopkeeper, "My dear sir, never mind. Just oblige me, will you, by sending the bundle home? But stay, I really believe that I have nothing less than a $5 bill, even there. However, you can send $4 in change with the bundle, you know." "Very good, sir," replies the shopkeeper, who entertains at once a lofty opinion of the high-mindedness of his customer. "I know fellows," he says to himself, "who would just have put the goods under their arm and walked off with a promise to call and pay the $1 as they came by in the afternoon." A boy is sent with the parcel and change. On the route, quite accidentally, he is met by the purchaser, who exclaims, "Ah, this is my bundle, I see. I thought you had been home with it long ago. Well, go on. My wife, Mrs. Trotter, will give you the $5. I left instructions with her to that effect. The change you might as well give to me. I shall want some silver for the post office. Very good. 1, 2, is this a good quarter? 3, 4, quite right. Say to Mrs. Trotter that you met me, and be sure now, and do not loiter on the way." The boy doesn't loiter at all, but he is a very long time in getting back from his errand, for no lady of the precise name of Mrs. Trotter is to be discovered. He consoles himself, however, that he has not been such a fool as to leave the goods without the money, and re-entering his shop with a self-satisfied air, feels sensibly hurt and indignant when his master asks him what has become of the change. A very simple diddle indeed is this. The captain of a ship which is about to sail is presented by an official-looking person with an unusually moderate bill of city charges. Glad to get off so easily and confused by 100 duties pressing upon him all at once, he discharges the claim forthwith. In about sorry, in about 15 minutes, another and less reasonable bill is handed him by one who soon makes it evident that the first collector was a diddler, and the original collection a diddle. And here too is a somewhat similar thing. A steamboat is casting loose from the wharf. A traveler, portmanteau in hand, is discovered running towards the wharf at full speed. Suddenly he makes a dead halt, stoops, and picks up something from the ground in a very agitated manner. It is a pocketbook, and "Has any gentleman lost a pocketbook?" he cries. No one can say that he has exactly lost a pocketbook, but a great excitement ensues when the treasure trove is found to be of value. The boat, however, must not be detained. "Time and tide wait for no man," says the captain. "For God's sake, stay only a few minutes," says the finder of the book. "The true claimant will presently appear." "Can't wait," replies the man in authority. "Cast off there, do you hear?" "What am I to do, what am I do?" asks the finder in great tribulation. "I am about to leave the country for some years, and I cannot conscientiously retain this large amount in my possession. I beg your pardon, sir." Here he addresses a gentleman on shore. "But you have the air of an honest man. Will you confer upon me the favor of taking charge of this pocketbook? I know I can trust you, and of advertising it. The notes, you see, amount to a very considerable sum. The owner will, no doubt, insist upon rewarding you for your trouble." "Me? No, you. It was you who found the book." "Well, if you must have it so, I will take a small reward." "Just to satisfy your scruples." Oops. "Let me see. Why, these notes are all hundreds. Bless my soul, 100 is too much to take. 50 would be quite enough, I am sure." "Cast off there," says the captain. "But then I have no change for 100, and upon the whole you had better—" "Cast off there," says the captain. "Never mind," cries the gentleman on shore, who has been examining his own pocketbook for the last minute or so. "Never mind, I can fix it. Here is a 50 on the Bank of North America. Throw me the book." And the over-conscientious finder takes the 50 with marked reluctance and throws the gentleman the book, as desired, while the steamboat fumes and fizzes on her way. In about half an hour after her departure, the large amount is seen to be a counterfeit presentment, and the whole thing a capital diddle. A bold diddle is this. A camp meeting or something similar is to be held at a certain spot, which is accessible only by means of a free bridge. A diddler stations himself upon this bridge, respectfully informs all passers-by of the new county law, which establishes a toll of 1 cent for foot passengers, 2 for horses and donkeys, and so forth and so forth. Some grumble, but all submit, and the diddler goes home a wealthier man by some $50 or $60 well earned. This taking a toll from a great crowd of people is an excessively troublesome thing. A neat diddle is this. A friend holds one of the diddler's promises to pay, filled up and signed in due form, upon the ordinary blanks printed in red ink. The diddler purchases 1 or 2 dozen of these blanks, and every day dips one of them in his soup, makes his dog jump for it, and finally gives it to him as a bonne bouche. The note arriving at maturity, the diddler, with the diddler's dog, calls upon the friend, and the promise to pay is made the topic of discussion. The friend produces it from his escritoire, and is in the act of reaching it to the diddler, when up jumps the diddler's dog, and devours it forthwith. The diddler is not only surprised, but vexed and incensed at the absurd behavior of his dog, and expresses his entire readiness to cancel the obligation at any moment when the evidence of the obligation shall be forthcoming. A very minute diddle is this. A lady is insulted in the street by a diddler's accomplice. The diddler himself flies to her assistance, and, giving his friend a comfortable thrashing, insists upon attending the lady to her own door. He bows with his hand upon his heart, and most respectfully bids her adieu. She entreats him, as her deliverer, to walk in and be introduced to her big brother and her papa. With a sigh, he declines to do so. "Is there no way, then, sir," she murmurs, "in which I may be permitted to testify my gratitude?" "Why, yes, madam, there is. Will you be kind enough to lend me a couple of shillings?" In the first excitement of the moment, the lady decides upon fainting outright. Upon second thought, however, she opens her purse strings and delivers the specie. Now this, I say, is a diddle minute, for one entire moiety of the sum borrowed has to be paid to the gentleman who had the trouble of performing the insult, and who had then to stand still and be thrashed for performing it. Rather a small, but still a scientific diddle is this. The diddler approaches the bar of a tavern and demands a couple of twists of tobacco. These are handed to him, when, having slightly examined them, he says, "I don't much like this tobacco. Here, take it back, and give me a glass of brandy and water in its place." The brandy and water is furnished and imbibed, and the diddler makes his way to the door, but the voice of the tavern keeper arrests him. "I believe, sir, you have forgotten to pay for your brandy and water." Pay for my brandy and water? Didn't I give you the tobacco for the brandy and water? What more would you have? But, sir, if you please, I don't remember that you paid for the tobacco. What do you mean by that, you scoundrel? Didn't I give you back your tobacco? Isn't that your tobacco lying there? Do you expect me to pay for what I did not take? Oh. Ah, come on, let's go. Come on, come on. But, sir, says the publican, now rather at a loss what to say. But, sir, but me no but, sir, interrupts the diddler, apparently in very high dudgeon, and slamming the door after him as he makes his escape. But me no but, sir, and none of your tricks upon travellers. Here again is a very clever diddle, of which the simplicity is not its least recommendation. A purse or pocketbook being really lost, the loser inserts in one of the daily papers of a large city a fully descriptive advertisement. One moment. Fully descriptive advertisement. Whereupon our diddler copies the facts of this advertisement with a change of heading, of general phraseology, and address. The original, for instance, is long and verbose, is headed "A Pocketbook Lost," and requires the treasure, when found, to be left at number 1 Tom Street. The copy is brief, and being headed with "Lost" only, indicates number 2 Dick or number 3 Harry Street as the locality at which the owner may be seen. Moreover, it is inserted in at least 5 or 6 of the daily papers of the day, while in point of time it makes its appearance only a few hours after the original. Should it be read by the loser of the purse, he would hardly suspect it to have any reference to his own misfortune. But of course the chances are 5 or 6 to 1 that the finder will repair to the address given by the diddler, rather than to that pointed out by the rightful proprietor. The former pays the reward, pockets the treasure, and decamps. Quite an analogous diddle is this. A lady of ton has dropped somewhere in the street a diamond ring of very unusual value. For its recovery she offers some $40 or $50 reward, giving in her advertisement a very minute description of the gem, and of its settings, and declaring that, upon its restoration to number so-and-so, in such and such avenue, the reward will be paid instantea, without a single question being asked. During the lady's absence from home, a day or two afterwards, a ring is heard at the door of number so-and-so, in such and such avenue. A servant appears. The lady of the house is asked for, and is declared to be out. At which astounding information the visitor expresses the most poignant regret. His business is of importance and concerns the lady herself. In fact, he had the good fortune to find her diamond ring. But perhaps it would be as well that he should call again. By no means, says the servant, and by no means, says the lady's sister and the lady's sister-in-law, who are summoned forthwith. The ring is clamorously identified, the reward is paid, and the finder nearly thrust out of doors. The lady returns and expresses some little dissatisfaction with her sister and sister-in-law, because they happen to have paid $40 or $50 for a facsimile of her diamond ring, a facsimile made out of real pinchbeck and unquestionable paste. What is that? Alloy of copper and zinc resembling gold used in watchmaking cheap jewelry. So the gold ring plus the diamond paste? Interesting. But as there is really no end to diddling, so there would be none to this essay, were I even to hint at half the variations or inflections of which the science is susceptible. I must bring this paper perforce to a conclusion. In this I cannot do better than by a summary notice of a very decent, but rather elaborate diddle, of which our own city was made the theatre, not very long ago, and which was subsequently repeated with success in other, still more verdant localities of the Union. A middle-aged gentleman arrives in town from parts unknown. He is remarkably precise, cautious, staid, and deliberate in his demeanor. His dress is scrupulously neat, but plain, unostentatious. He wears a white cravat, an ample waistcoat, made with an eye to comfort alone, thick-soled, cozy-looking shoes, and pantaloons without straps. He has the whole air, in fact, of your well-to-do, sober-sided, exact, and respectable man of business par excellence, one of the stern and outwardly hard, internally soft sort of people that we see in the crack-high comedies, fellows whose words are so many bonds, and who are noted for giving away guineas in charity with the one hand, while, in the way of mere bargain, they exact the uttermost fraction of a farthing with the other. He makes much ado before he can get suited with a boarding-house. He dislikes children. He has been accustomed to quiet. His habits are methodical, and then he would prefer getting into a private and respectable family, small family, piously inclined. Terms, however, are no object. Only he must insist upon settling his bill on the 1st of every month. It is now the 2nd, and begs his landlady, when he finally obtains one to his mind, not on any account to forget his instructions upon this point, but to send in a bill and receipt precisely at 10 o'clock on the first day of every month, and under no circumstances to put it off to the second. These arrangements made, our man of business rents an office in a reputable rather than in a fashionable quarter of the town. There is nothing he more despises than pretense. Where there is much show, he says, there is seldom anything very solid behind. Fair. An observation which so profoundly impresses his landlady's fancy that she makes a pencil memorandum of it forthwith in her great family Bible on the broad margin of the Proverbs of Solomon. The next step is to advertise after some such fashion as this, in the principal business sixpennies of this city. The pennies are eschewed as not respectable, and as demanding payment for all advertisements in advance. Our man of business holds it as a point of his faith that work should never be paid for until done. Wanted, the advertisers, being about to commence extensive business operations in this city, will require the services of 3 or 4 intelligent and competent clerks, to whom a liberal salary will be paid. The very best recommendations, not so much for capacity as for integrity, will be expected. Indeed, as the duties to be performed involve high responsibilities and large amounts of money must necessarily pass through the hands of those engaged, it is deemed advisable to demand a deposit of $50 from each clerk employed. No person need apply, therefore, who is not prepared to leave this sum in the possession of the advertisers, and who cannot furnish the most satisfactory testimonials of morality. Young gentlemen piously inclined will be preferred. Application should be made between the hours of 10 and 11 a.m. and 4 and 5 p.m. of Messrs. Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs, and Co., number 110 Dog Street. That was in our last one. By the 31st day of the month, this advertisement has brought to the office of Messrs. Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs, and Company some 15 or 20 young gentlemen, piously inclined. But our man of business is in no hurry to conclude a contract with any. No man of business is ever precipitate, and it is not until the most rigid catechism in respect to the piety of each young gentleman's inclination that his services are engaged and his $50 receipted for, just by way of proper precaution, on the part of the respectable firm of Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs, and Company. On the morning of the first day of the next month, the landlady does not present her bill, according to promise, a piece of neglect for which the comfortable head of the house ending in Oggs would no doubt have chided her severely, could he have been prevailed upon to remain in town a day or two for that purpose. As it is, the constables have had a sad time of it, running hither and thither, and all they can do is declare the man of business most emphatically a hen knee-high, by which some persons imagine them to imply that, in fact, he is NEI, by which, again, the very classical phrase, non et inventus, is not, could not be found, is supposed to be understood. In the meantime, the young gentlemen, one and all, are somewhat less piously inclined than before, while the landlady purchases a shilling's worth of the best Indian rubber and very carefully obliterates the pencil memorandum that some fool has made in her great family Bible on the broad margin of the Proverbs of Solomon. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. I quite enjoyed that one. And it does. It makes you think, because it's difficult in dealing with people. It is. Some people are trustworthy, some are not. Some people seem trustworthy and they're not, and some people seem untrustworthy and they're not. So it is. It's every moment is different. You got to take it as it comes. And yeah, just don't advertise things in newspapers because somebody's going to take it. Greedy, exploitative people. Ah, yes. So those were, hang on, let me find the chapters. Mystification, Xing a paragraph, and diddling considered as one of the exact sciences. By Edgar Allan Poe. Ah, yes. So, I'm glad I was able to get one in at the end of June. I did the wrong thing. I'm sorry. Hello. So that was that, getting into it. I might want to do one tomorrow, and it might be Flight Simulator because, and this is the reason why my schedule is going to be kind of up in the air coming up. So I up in the air, ha 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 ha, because I did my intro flight yesterday, and I'm going to be starting lessons, and I am studying for to get my pilot's license. So if anyone cares. So yes, again, that's why it's going to be up in the air, haha. So I won't. I'm not sure because it is. It's like apparently within a couple of days you have to make the basically reservations for the plane and everything. So it will. It won't be like on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. It'll be whenever I get a chance. And maybe as it gets into the weeks a bit more, it'll be a little bit more consistent. I don't know, and I don't want to promise what I can't make promises I can't keep. But I do. I'm hoping to do that tomorrow because I might have. I did. I enjoyed it so much, and I really want to get into it again. And I really do think the simulator actually really helped yesterday. And yeah, I do. I just want to do it again, and I hope that it's entertaining for anyone who wants to watch. So anyway, that's that, and it's either tomorrow or like next week. I will hopefully stream again, and hopefully we'll be more consistent. Not consistent, but like more what's the word? More frequent. That, yes. Yes. Anyway. Hello. We just finished up Poe, and I'm going to have to go. I'm sorry. And I rhymed. That made me happy, but yes. Good to see you. I hope you caught some of it. And yes, so either tomorrow I will be doing Flight Simulator or I will be doing something next week. So hope to see you again. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Hope you enjoyed whatever you got to see, if you got to see it. Yeah, so to whoever got lost and found their way here, found their way back, thanks. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. I love those. It was interesting seeing the humor of Poe rather than the macabre. In contrast to the macabre, I should say. So, yeah. So, yes. So that was lots of Poe. Have a great whatever it's going to be for you, and hopefully I'll be better at this next time. So, yes, thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate it. Oh, wait, I gotta make sure. Is it work? My thing is small. There. So, yes, thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon, whenever that is. Yeah, so bye. Sorry, I forgot to make. I'll get better, I promise. I can't make those promises. Okay, bye. Thanks for bearing with me.